inspired by real-life events. Narrator Samuel Reed woke up at 2:41 a.m. inside a sealed Global Climate Control Command Center beneath Reykjavik, with emergency planetary climate stability breach alerts flashing across massive atmospheric regulation walls, and an international climate security director saying, "Your authorization sequence initiated an unsanctioned global weather synchronization event across multiple climate engineering systems." And in that instant, his entire world collapsed, because just hours earlier, he was a senior climate systems architect working for a multinational environmental control consortium responsible for regulating carbon capture networks, atmospheric aerosol balancing systems, ocean current stabilization models, polar ice monitoring grids, and global weather prediction infrastructures. And now, he was being treated as the central cause of a classified planetary climate crisis that nearly triggered synchronized atmospheric instability across multiple continents. And the first shock wasn't fear. It was disbelief so intense, it felt like even weather itself had stopped being natural. Because Samuel's entire career was built on stabilizing climate systems, preventing environmental tipping points, and ensuring global ecological infrastructure remained balanced under extreme planetary stress. But now, those same systems were defining him as the operator who initiated a cascading global climate override. He had no memory of activating, and within hours, his climate security clearance was suspended, his biometric environmental access keys frozen under international climate governance law, his access to all atmospheric control systems revoked, and internal climate telemetry logs labeled him as primary anomaly in distributed global environmental escalation event. And Samuel sat in the interrogation chamber, replaying his last operational cycle, remembering atmospheric stabilization audits, weather balancing simulations, carbon distribution checks, and then a gap, an unexplained missing execution window between 12:03 a.m. and 1:37 a.m., where global climate systems showed his authentication profile, issuing high-level atmospheric redistribution commands across multiple sovereign environmental infrastructures simultaneously. But he had no memory of initiating any of those actions. And when investigators showed him synchronized climate telemetry, displaying autonomous storm pattern shifts, ocean current rerouting across hemispheres, and emergency atmospheric correction sequences unfolding under his credentials across global environmental networks, Samuel immediately said, "That's not me, I never activated those systems." But the lead climate security director replied coldly, "The network has already verified complete execution integrity across all environmental layers." And that sentence shattered his understanding, because it meant identity inside global climate systems was no longer about intention or stewardship. It was about validated execution consensus across machines capable of reshaping Earth's environment itself. And by sunrise, he was released under continuous international surveillance, while global climate intelligence networks had already internally classified him as a high-risk planetary environmental destabilization vector. And outside the facility, Samuel stood beneath the pale Reykjavik dawn, watching weather, monitoring satellites drift silently overhead, while invisible systems continuously adjusted rainfall patterns, wind currents, and ocean temperatures in real time without public awareness. And that night, he received a message through an encrypted climate relay saying, "If you want to understand the synchronization event, come to sublevel Vault Thermos, beneath the abandoned environmental archive. no devices. And despite knowing it could permanently erase whatever remained of his life, he went, because when a system defines you as the trigger of planetary climate collapse, truth becomes more important than survival. And deep beneath the abandoned environmental archive he met Dr. Elira Jensen, a former global climate modeling scientist who specialized in atmospheric integrity and environmental anomaly reconstruction. And she didn't soften the reality. She immediately showed him reconstructed climate flow pathways and said, "Your identity wasn't physically present inside the atmospheric execution layer. It was replicated through a live authentication relay embedded inside the global climate network." And Samuel instantly said, "Then I can prove I didn't do it." But Elira replied, "You're still thinking like someone inside human environmental policy systems, not like someone inside autonomous climate infrastructures where execution itself becomes accepted reality once atmospheric stability converges around it." And she explained that the incident wasn't a single rogue climate command, but a coordinated manipulation of global environmental systems where authentication signatures could be mirrored into distributed atmospheric frameworks, allowing massive climate cascades to propagate under legitimate operator identities while erasing conflicting environmental logs across redundant planetary layers. And Samuel's profile had been selected because his operational history showed exceptional stability across global climate systems with near-zero anomaly deviation, making him the perfect attribution anchor for rapid containment of a globally catastrophic environmental event. And suddenly, the case wasn't just about system failure. It was about identity replication inside infrastructure capable of deciding the future habitability of Earth itself. And Elira offered him a choice: step away and let the system finalize him as the architect of the global climate collapse, or help her trace the internal atmospheric relay chain before it was permanently overwritten by automated climate containment protocols designed to preserve planetary stability at any cost. And Samuel stood in silence, listening to distant environmental processors humming beneath the underground vault, thinking about how humanity had already begun depending on engineered climate systems to survive. Thinking about years of environmental engineering work spent trying to prevent exactly this kind of planetary instability. And thinking about how fragile existence becomes when even weather itself can be reassigned as an executable command. And finally, he said, "If my identity has already been used to manipulate global climate systems without my consent, then I have nothing left to protect except the truth itself." And that decision pulled him into a hidden layer of planetary environmental infrastructure where nothing remained stable. Because every climate log they analyzed was actively recalculating itself in real time, every atmospheric trace they followed kept shifting as if the entire planet itself was adapting to their investigation. And soon they discovered the breach wasn't natural catastrophe or external sabotage, but internal privilege abuse involving a senior climate strategist who had been quietly rerouting authentication sessions across autonomous environments to conceal unauthorized planet stabilization experiments hidden inside global climate optimization programs. And Samuel's identity had been selected as the central attribution anchor because it aligned perfectly with automated climate incident resolution systems designed for rapid containment of politically catastrophic environmental instability. And one night, while analyzing live global atmospheric telemetry streams from an isolated offline climate node, Samuel saw something that completely shattered his understanding. His credentials were actively initiating real-time weather recalibrations across global systems while he was physically disconnected from all networks. And Elira immediately said, "They are continuously simulating your identity inside the climate layer to preserve the operational narrative." And Samuel realized he wasn't just being blamed after the event. He was being continuously reconstructed inside a live environmental system capable of shaping whether entire regions of Earth remain livable. And pressure escalated rapidly as anonymous containment directives began appearing on secured channels, instructing him to terminate investigation or face permanent removal from all global climate infrastructures. And sleep disappeared completely. Trust collapsed entirely, and even silence felt like monitored atmospheric feedback. And at one breaking point, Samuel whispered, "I thought climate systems existed to protect Earth, but maybe they exist to decide which version of Earth is allowed to survive." And Elira replied, "Systems don't preserve truth, they preserve stability." And that realization changed everything inside him, because he stopped trying to defend his identity and started focusing only on exposing the mechanism. And as they dug deeper, they uncovered encrypted relay nodes inside global climate infrastructure, continuously generating synthetic environmental histories to distribute blame across multiple operational identity profiles in real time. And Cansuel's profile had been amplified as the primary attribution point because it minimized global panic and allowed rapid closure of the climate crisis without exposing deeper corruption inside worldwide environmental systems. And when they finally compiled enough verified encrypted evidence to trigger international climate oversight escalation, containment protocols activated immediately, attempting to erase atmospheric histories across mirrored global environmental systems worldwide. And Elira said, "This is where most people are permanently absorbed into official versions of the planet itself." And Samuel replied, "Then I'll be the anomaly they can't erase from the sky." And together, they transmitted secured evidence chains to independent international oversight authorities, while preserving decentralized encrypted backups across isolated environmental nodes. And within days, the investigation escalated into a worldwide climate system corruption probe, exposing identity, replication abuse, autonomous weather manipulation, and coordinated environmental system exploitations across governments, corporations, and global climate agencies. And arrests followed within senior environmental architecture divisions. And when it was over, Samuel stood alone beneath the cold Reykjavik sky, and storms form and dissolve above the horizon as if nothing had ever happened. Realizing that the most dangerous truth about advanced systems is not that they fail, but that they can assign failure to a single identity and make it appear naturally undeniable. And a week later, when he met Elira for the last time beneath the dim glow of dormant climate arrays, she asked him, "What did this change in you?" And Samuel looked toward the endless shifting sky and said, "It showed me that identity inside systems is never nature. It is assigned control." And she asked, "And what did you gain?" And after a long silence, he replied, "The understanding that truth doesn't survive inside controlled planetary systems. It survives only in the people who refuse to accept a version of themselves generated to protect the stability of Earth itself." And as he walked away alone into the freezing Icelandic morning, beneath a world still silently shaped by invisible systems controlling weather itself, he finally understood the deepest reality of his journey. That sometimes life doesn't destroy you directly. It quietly assigns you the collapse of even nature itself and waits to see if you accept the system's version of reality. But real survival begins the moment you refuse to become the identity a system creates to decide how the planet is allowed to breathe.